Hello, everybody. Today's topic is we're going to talk about utility knives. These little things right here, you may have these at home, and you've certainly probably seen these in the shop. And we've probably been hunting for these things in the shop for quite a while, especially if we're working with electricity or with any of the construction classes. But the one thing about utility knives that are great is they are a utilitarian knife, which means you can use them for a lot of different purposes. Everything from cutting string to cutting shingles to, you know, shaving off a little bit on a piece of lumber to get it to fit a little tighter, to electrical wiring. So these things are really handy to have around, but I make the mistake a lot of times of assuming that students just know everything about a utility knife that I do, because we used to play with these things a lot when I was on the farm. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the knives themselves, the different types that we have here at the school. And I also want to show you how to change out blades, different types of blades, although I only have a couple different types of blades, and what you can do with these utility knives. So one of the things that we have is different types. So this is one that on the top of it, you notice that it's got a slide on there. So if I push down on that slide with my finger as I'm pushing it forward, it extends the blade out. Okay, and then I have another one here, a little different style, but pretty much works the same way. Push down on that and push down to retract it. Usually you're doing this with your thumb as you're going along. So I just did my finger there to get this out of the way so you can see how that works. Okay, real simple application. We also have this one, which I am going to throw away right after this demonstration. I'm going to take the blades out of it and throw it away, but this one does not retract at all. You notice at the top of the blade there is no slide on the top. There's just no way to retract this blade. So this thing is very dangerous, because most of the time when you're working on a construction site, you are putting this in and out of your cargo pockets on your nail apron. And if you can't retract that blade, you're just kind of poking it into things. Also, there's no way to retract this blade, so if it's laying around somewhere and you pick it up wrong, there's a good chance that you're going to cut yourself. So I'm throwing this thing away right after this demonstration. So one of the things I want to show you, as long as I've shown you how to retract the blades on these things, is I want to show you how to replace the blades. So you notice that on the side here there is a screw, and all you have to do is take a screwdriver and take that screw out. Now, if you're on the roof of a house, there's a really good chance you're going to drop this little screw. It's going to roll off the roof of the house and end up somewhere down in the grass. We'll show you a way to fix that problem in a little bit here. So once I take that screw out, the two halves, and I'm going to move my screen just a little bit so you can see a little better. The two halves of the knife itself come apart. Oops. That popped open a little more than what I wanted it to. Okay. So here's that little slide button, and again you see that it's got a little spring there, which allows you to push that down. It helps lock it into place as this thing moves out and in. Okay. So you notice on this one too, there's a couple little metal notches right here, and that's where these notches of the blade fit into. So when I put a new blade in there, I just make sure that that lines up. The two notches line up with the two blades there. Okay, notice back here I have blade storage. So this is where you keep your extra blades, and I always like to, when I'm going out to construction sites, especially for the first time in a while, I like to make sure that I've got extra blades in there, because if you're doing a roofing project, these blades will get dull very fast cutting through shingles. So it's a good idea to have a bunch of new blades or extra blades in this back storage area. And almost all knives have this storage area in them now. So to change out my blade, I just lift that up. I take my blade out. I grab my new blade out of my storage. I put that in there, again making sure that the two notches line up with the two notches, the two posts on my blade carrier, and then I just line everything back up. Take my screw, put it back in there, take my screwdriver, and turn that back in. It doesn't have to go super tight, because this screw is not going to rattle out and probably not going to fall out of there. The other thing I like to do before I put this in my nail apron is I want to make sure that I have the complete travel of that blade, and especially that it goes all the way back. So even having that blade stick out just a little bit, there's a really good chance you're going to cut yourself with that. So you want to make sure that that blade performs as it should. So I was talking about dropping that little screw and having it roll off of the roof. So there's a better way and a more ingenious way, and that's with this type of knife right here. Okay, these knives are great. I don't know who the inventor of this thing was, but I mean, this is the best thing literally since sliced bread. All right, so a couple features on that. You notice that they have this little dot or this little switch or this little pressure point right here, and that's an amazing feature of these knives. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to change that blade without taking it apart like we did with the yellow knife just a second ago. So what you do is you slide that blade all the way forward and you hold it with your thumb, you push down on that yellow button. I'm pushing it down with my finger, and you're able to wiggle that blade out and replace it without having to go through and open up and have your screw drop off the table or off of the roof and then roll down into the grass. So that's a great feature. So again, to do that, again, push that blade all the way forward. Take your finger, push down on that, very carefully grab the back side of the blade, not the sharp side, and just have that blade come out. These blades are double-sided too, so you can just take it and switch it around. Wiggle it back in there. It should fit back in there. Again, notice that I'm keeping my fingers away from the front edge of that blade, the sharp edge of that blade. And then again, just check it for operation. Now, blade storage is great too, because on the back side, and it might be a little difficult to see with my lighting, but I've got this little, again, another push button back there that allows the back of this handle to open up. So see if I can get that to work here. And that opens up, and here I have more blades in storage here. So again, I can take this thing apart and I can replace blades without having to open this thing up and having that screw roll away from me. So great feature on these knives. Again, I don't know who invented this thing or came up with this, but it's an amazing piece of equipment. So a couple things about this knife as well is, you notice this little notch right here. That's for cutting small stuff like string or whatever without having to go ahead and extend the knife all the way out. So if I needed to cut just a little chunk of string or something, I could just put it in this notch, cut it with my knife, and I don't have to extend that out. Just kind of speeds things up a little bit. But anyway, so utility knives, great invention. I like using utility knives because these blades are pretty heavy duty. I've seen some people using what's called a snap knife, and I'll try to remember to bring one of those from home next time I do another demo on tools. But basically it's a long, probably about a 4 or 5 inch long metal blade that you can snap off sections of it to get a new corner and a new point and keep that thing sharp. The bad thing about those snap knives is they are extremely flexible, and I have almost cut my thumb off using one of those because as I was pushing down using that to try and cut a shingle, it wandered away because it was very flexible, and I ended up cutting myself pretty well in that, so, or pretty badly I should say. But don't use those things for shingles. The other things about these utility knives, there's all sorts of different knife blades that they come up with. So the ones that we had before are straight knives blades. These are called a hook blade, and we use these a lot for cutting shingles. They're great for that because you can hook them and cut as straight as you can get that knife to go, but speeds up cutting shingles a lot with these. I also think I've seen people use these for cutting linoleum, which is like floor tile and things like that. So a bunch of different blades out there. Probably, again, the most two common ones are the straight cutting blade and then the hook blade here. So until the next time that we get together, again, stay safe and don't drive your parents nuts.